Hey friends, quick content warning for this episode. We'll be talking about Hector Berlioz in the Symphonie Fantastique, and it is definitely a separate the art from the artist thing, and we will not be ignoring the things Hector Berlioz did, though. And he was an awful dude, so this episode will have mentions of murder and suicide. Hector also stalked a woman, which we'll be talking about in more detail than the other things, since it's actually pertinent for the context of the symphony. So if that's not something you're prepared to hear right now, just catch us next time. There'll be no hard feelings. Also, not a content warning, but we had some sound issues with this episode, so the sound is not the best. Mostly Violet's sound, but it is listenable. It's not the usual that I shoot for, but we had some technical issues, and it's still a really good episode, though, so it's worth it. But if you're cool with all of that, have a nice time and enjoy. Hi, welcome to Infodumpies. I'm Brianne. My pronouns are she, her. I am AuDHD, and not to get political, but omelette du fromage.
Hi, I'm Violet. My pronouns are she, her. I have ADHD, and I thoroughly believe that tardigrades should be allowed to vote.
And our guest today is Sean. His pronouns are he, him. He is AuDHD, and I've discovered that if I send him a file that says it's a script, he will say just about anything I put in a PDF document.
Itchy, stinky, coochie.
Itchy, stinky coochie. That's been one of my favorites.
Classic line. Classic Sean line.
Sean is the composer on our other show, Today's Lucky Winner. He is a band director and also just one of my oldest friends. So
He's a cool guy.
That's debatable.
It's not. You are a cool guy. So, yes, Sean, tell us what you will be dumping about today.
Today I will be dumping about what I think is the single most bizarre and interesting story of composition ever. The
ham
composition and... I'm sorry?
Oh, I said, ham boning, obviously. It must be.
Yes, the other one, because you already know about that one.
Got it.
The composition of Symphonie Fantastique by French composer Hector Berlioz, which has everything you could want in a story. Falling in love, danger, poison, French people, incels.
That's my top 5. That's my top 5 right there. This is a musical or like a song?
This is a symphony.
Or...
It's a single symphony. It's about 45 minutes long. I
Okay.
highly recommend anybody listen to it.
Yeah, I Googled it because I was like, I want to learn a little bit more about what Sean's talking about today. And I just saw the line, opium-filled debauchery, and I was like, oh, I don't want spoilers. I'm already sold.
Yeah, opium-filled debauchery is a perfectly good tagline.
Ooh,
and it gets worse.
Okay. Yeah. Oh my god. So, Sean, I have some experience in musical stuff. I played an instrument for a number of years, but I never was like involved in anything more than like marching band. What exactly is a symphony? How would you define that?
The definition of symphony has changed over the last 400 or 500 years. So the answer is not as simple as it's a thing.
Okay.
It originated the words sinfonia originated as another term for either the overture or the intermission, the entr'acte to an opera. It was just the instrumental fun stuff that happened before or in the middle or even at the end of the opera. And at some point people started going, I really don't give a shit about these Italian people singing, but I do enjoy the music that they were playing at the beginning. Can we just have that? And so composers started to write what would be now called overtures or very short symphonies, and they began to get longer and longer. And by the time of about 1750 is when we say the classical era begins. Around that time, the symphony has or is in the final stages of solidifying into a specific form. It's 4 movements. It's a fast movement, a slow movement, a fast movement, a slow movement. I'm sorry, a fast, slow, fast. Pardon me.
That's similar to my movement.
Each one has Yeah, right. It's like your post-coffee, pre-lunch, 4:00, middle of the night. Yeah.
And then you're the one where you get all your crying out for the day.
Right, that's usually the second one. Right, right pre-lunch.
The second movement, yeah.
Right, for me, that's right in the middle of second period. Around the early 1800s, Ludwig van Beethoven was probably not the first one to mess with the definition of a symphonic form, but he was certainly the biggest name to do so, and so we kind of credit him with it. Nowadays, a symphony is anything you call a symphony. It's kind of like what constitutes art. It's whatever the artist says is art. And that's not, I don't mean that disparagingly. Essentially, yeah. I don't mean that disparagingly. I'm going to tell you, when I was in composition classes in college, I saw in a book of non-traditional scores the score to a piece called the Young Penis Symphony.
Oh my, I believe I remember you sending this to me. I'm sure I told you when it happened. The score is a series of instructions. It doesn't have notes or anything. The instructions are essentially 10 men stand behind a sheet of butcher paper, naked and ellipsis ready. The first man sticks his penis through the sheet of paper. The second man sticks his penis through the sheet of paper, all the way through the 10th. That is the entire symphony, he said, with quotation marks. A symphony now is any usually extended musical work, and that's it. Okay. Usually for orchestra, but that's not always true. The first symphony I ever saw the premiere of was for wind band. So
okay, so it's kind of like
Corleone's Third.
It's kind of like the Esquire title. It has like an implied attention meaning. Like, I'm trying to be fancy right
Absolutely.
now. This is implying fanciness. Okay, cool.
Absolutely. It carries with it a certain gravitas, the same way as the Esquire title might. I actually don't know.
I believe Esquire just used to mean landowner. So
sure, you know more about it than I do.
So technically,
because I know nothing except how to spell it.
Technically, you and I could say that together we wrote a symphony, because there's a musical episode of our other podcast that Sean and I wrote.
Yeah.
Yes, we could. Until Beethoven, it was considered always to be an instrumental work, and then Beethoven's Ninth came out, which is, in my opinion, the greatest piece of music ever written. And it finishes with a big old fucking choir. So that part of the definition is out the window.
Sean, I guess that means you have not heard Lou Bega's Mambo No. 5.
I have heard Beethoven put in all of the Monica. Not just a little bit.
Okay, so now that I know that a symphony is a specific thing and also could be dicks and paper,
it couldn't in the 1800s, which I want to make that clear. If that had happened in 1800, Hector Berlioz would not have lived another year. He would have been dragged to the streets of Paris and shot.
All right, well, they did not appreciate things like puppetry of the penis back then.
I know fine art when I hear it, and that is fine art.
So yeah, now that I have an idea of what a symphony is and was back then, what makes Symphonie Fantastique so fantastique?
It is, so the title is Fantastique in the sense of relating to fantasy. But what makes it so cool is, and I say cool and I use it quite wrongly, what makes it so interesting is the story behind it. And that also involves Beethoven. Hector Berlioz is born in 1803, and when he is a teenager, this is a little bit of a nebulous date. When he's a teenager, the Romantic era of music begins. The Romantic era of music is largely ushered in by Beethoven. He's not the only one by any stretch of the imagination, but essentially, their whole thing is let's get bigger emotions. Let's make things that feel like we feel, man. It's like a response to what as even bigger.
Like emo.
Than the Backstreet Boys.
Like this is early emo.
Oh, okay.
Very much like emo. In fact, probably the first thing we could call emo music would have been German Romanticism in the mid 1800s.
Now you
Oh,
got
yeah.
now
And from
now
this
you
we
got
get-
my fucking attention.
Yeah.
Mein Chemical in
Yeah,
Romanzen.
this is... yeah. People like Strauss and Schubert and Brahms are writing things that are not only more emotional, but more free in their form. Because life doesn't follow a script, and therefore their logic is, why should we follow these very specific forms? And of course, that's a very slow evolution. No one comes out in 1805 and goes, I wrote a piece and it's John Cage. But they do start playing with things, and they get pushback. Of course, every art movement begins with someone having an idea and someone else going, that's stupid. And some of the ideas were stupid. Because it has a lot to do with these emotions, the Romantic era lends itself to program music. Program music is any instrumental work, specifically instrumental, this one really is, that has a story or paints a picture. So a lot of Bach's work, the story was, I'm getting paid on Friday and I need to have a piece of music to get paid for.
I feel that.
A lot of music, especially now, is it more in the vein of the film score, where it tells a story without words, without pictures. And Symphonie Fantastique might have been, it's difficult to say because, of course, people were writing that don't get remembered. Symphonie Fantastique might have been the first ever programmatic symphony. There were programmatic elements to Beethoven's Sixth. There were programmatic elements in some of Mozart's work. But that's one of the things that makes this such a big deal, is not only is it entirely programmatic, but Berlioz, as we'll talk about in a minute, wrote extensively about what it means. It wasn't just, this should feel like morning. It was, this should feel like morning, August 6th, 1885, and you should imagine the smell of bacon coming over the... That wasn't actually it. He was dead by 1885.
I love that.
I think.
There's so often when I see art and stuff like that in like a museum, like oftentimes I will be like searching like, what does it mean? What is the point of it? And I feel like the word that you just said, I'm so sorry. Program. Thank you. So with a program, it is kind of prescriptive in like, this is what you should feel, which I think is really interesting from like an artistic perspective, because most art forms try
Yes.
not to do that for some reason.
Well, and the degree of prescriptivism it varies. The program of Holst the Planets, which was my second choice to talk about, is essentially, this should sound like Mars. And the program to this is, there is a specific story. The program to Beethoven's Sixth is, there's a storm on the fields in the fourth movement. And that's all. So sometimes it really is a full-on story, like Peter and the Wolf. Peter and the Wolf is probably the best example of program music, because it has a narrator, and it tells the story without the narrator.
So it's like also proto-concept album.
Absolutely,
Ooh.
100%, yes.
Ooh, yeah.
Yes.
I love that.
Because okay, not to connect everything back to emo music and My Chemical Romance,
But why wouldn't you?
like, no, but why wouldn't I, right? But like the Black Parade, it's a good album, but then
Yeah.
Gerard Way is like, this is the story of a cancer patient dying and meeting death who has a rock band called the Black Parade, and takes him like, you would not know that unless you went to seek out that information, but then when you have that information, it changes your perception of listening to the entire thing. How did people get that information back then? Because I don't think they had NME magazine like I did.
It depends on the composer. For example, Berlioz made it a part of the contract, if you wanted to play his work, that you would include his notes. Sometimes it would just be like the title. The title of... I'm going back to Beethoven's Sixth because it's the easiest thing for me to remember off the top of my head. The title of the fourth movement of Beethoven's Sixth is The Storm.
There you go.
Okay.
That makes
So
sense.
sometimes it's just word of mouth. Because they absolutely did have the equivalent of NME magazine at the time. Remember that this is specifically is Paris, which is like 90% baguettes, 10% salons. It's just like salons and gluten.
I like the salons, and I would like the gluten, but it doesn't agree with
Well,
me.
yeah,
And
but
then
you
we can't forget,
you like
there's-
living to have the next salon.
There's also like an extra 10% cigarette smoke on and in everything, probably.
And another 25% endless revolution. And this symphony does actually happen right after the first French Revolution of the 1800s. So like only the 20th French Revolution. It has nothing to do with the revolution except that it informs the culture in which it was produced, both positively and negatively.
Kind of like how we talk about like pre 9/11 and post 9/11 country music.
Precisely.
Or just music in general, really.
Music in general, yeah. Berlioz is about 22, 23. And he gets to enroll in the Paris Conservatory, which is one of the top music schools in the world, because it's in Paris. And it says conservatory on it, which is not only part of the clue board, but worth very much in Scrabble. And he takes composition lessons, and he's a star student, but he's always falling just short. Specifically, he applies for, he tries for a prize called the Prix de Rome, which was, by all accounts, the biggest composition prize in the world. It was the best picture of the composition world. And essentially what it was you submitted scores that you'd written, you had extemporaneous writing to do. So like they would give you a prompt and you'd have to do a timed writing, but it was music. Which...
Oh my god. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
That's intense.
And
I did extemporaneous speaking for competitions in high school, and that was hard. I can't imagine if it had to have a melody.
Yeah. Not only a melody. Because the thing that trips up Berlioz is the part of the contest where you have to write a fugue. Now, if you don't know what a fugue is multiple lines independent all at the same time, usually 3 or 4, where you have an idea, and you play that idea, and then you play that idea in a different voice while something else goes on in the first voice, and then in a different voice while something else goes on in 1 and 2. And it turns into this contrapuntal morass. Without an E in the middle.
Morass?
Morass.
It turns into a contrapuntal, just sort of a mass of sound that every single note has to work together and also work as its own independent line. And it's one of the hardest things to do as a composer, because you have to be so cognizant in 3 dimensions.
Like organized cacophony.
Because it's kind of. Yes. The master of the fugue was Johann Sebastian Bach. If you've never listened to any of his fugues, you have homework. Because Carl Sagan apocryphally was asked to put one of Bach's fugues on the Voyager Golden Record and said that would just be showing off. But the fugue screws Berlioz because it's hard. I'm sure he did a lovely job. I didn't see it. I haven't heard it. Probably he ripped it up in anger. That's kind of the man he was. He gets into the conservatory, and that's a big deal, but he doesn't care because he missed out on this big prize. And the biggest part of the prize, of course, is the bragging rights. Yes, you get a nice fat check, but the biggest part of the prize is saying you won the prize, and it pisses him off, and it informs the next 10 years of his work because he's got a chip on his shoulder. But this is Paris. It's the center of arts and culture in Europe. And he goes to see Shakespeare one night in 1827. Well, not Shakespeare. Shakespeare's been dead for 200 years. He goes to see someone perform the work of Shakespeare in 1827. He goes to see Hamlet. And on stage is a world-renowned actor named Harriet Smithson, who's playing Ophelia. Spoilers, she's going to die. She was...
Oh God, spoiler alert, Jesus.
Sorry, it's only been out for 419 years or so.
I was going to watch it like tonight. Just kidding.
I was waiting for 420.
Harriet Smithson is an Irish actress, and she's playing Ophelia, and she's widely considered... She is considered to be maybe one of the most important actresses of her day. And I'm sorry, I don't remember exactly why, but it had to do with opening up avenues for actors. The thing is, Berlioz speaks French. Shakespeare, spoilers, spoke almost exclusively English. And wrote in exclusively English. And the play was performed in exclusively English. And Berlioz did not understand a goddamn word of English.
That makes sense.
He did not speak English. But he sees Harriet Smithson on stage playing Ophelia, playing a character, and he falls madly in love with her. Like 6th grader seeing his French teacher for the first time, falls madly in love with her. I didn't have a French teacher in 6th grade. Please don't say anything. And
I have a very specific teacher I had an enormous crush on.
Same.
Oh, I did too,
picturing
and it was not
something.
French. Mm-hmm. Yep. Everyone has that. Well, he falls head over heels. He is obsessed in the worst way. Like, white man on the internet. Worst way.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Except they didn't have the internet. So, instead of sliding into her DMs, he writes her love letters. For months. Exactly zero of them get an answer. Partly because she doesn't speak feckin' French. So he's writing her these passionate love letters in French.
Oh my God.
And she's going,
What the fuck is this shit? I don't speak that
This
goddamn
feckin'
French
bastard.
language.
all I can understand in
I
this
just imagine going, what's this?
merde?
I don't understand a goddamn word of this. It seems nice. Okay.
Thank you?
Something about
Thank you.
J-Tame. J-Tame? I don't know a J-Tame.
Well,
Oh,
because
that's a dumb
she's
thing.
working as a Shakespearean actress, Harriet Smithson is living in Paris. And he gets an apartment that overlooks her route home.
Yikes.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah,
Yikes.
yeah.
Nope. Don't do
At least
that.
for a while. Gentlemen of the podcast. No.
Yeah. You're on
Don't
thin
do
ice,
this.
bud.
If you have to be told this, just stop interacting with
Nah.
humans.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you're taking notes right now, put the notebook down and just go to sleep. Take a nap.
Mhm.
Think
For
about your life.
2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
Well, the tipping point comes when a scandal breaks. She's been sleeping with her manager. It's Paris. Of course she's been sleeping with her manager.
Well, yeah, that's...
Do you have any French people who listen? French people
Well,
from the
and
1800s?
it's also just like, like, hey, girl, be a slut. Do
Yeah,
whatever you
absolutely.
want.
Yeah, we don't slut
Have a
shame
great
here. Yeah.
time. You're have a good time. You're a freaky ass little theater
Yeah,
kid.
if you got the
It
hot
is a
one,
scandal
go for it.
because, of course, it affects the professionalism. That's the pen in the company ink and so on and so forth.
It is a conflict of interest.
It's definitely conflict of interest. So this is about 1828. The scandal breaks. She's been sleeping with the manager. And, of course, Berlioz, being the Keith of the situation, says, she's cheating on me. Naturally.
Oh my god.
Yes.
Lord
She's,
have
again,
Oh my
she has
God.
never spoken a word to you. They do not meet until 1829.
Listen, Sean, you did
He
not
has
tell
been-
us that Berlioz was an incel. All right?
I did. I said that.
He mentioned it. He mentioned
Oh, he did?
incels. I
Oh,
just
God.
didn't know that the guy who wrote the thing was an incel.
Oh yeah. Oh
Didn't-
yeah. No. This
didn't
is
catch
this
that
is a
part.
full-on musical incel manifesto that happens to also be great. No,
Wild.
it's fucked up. Let's be clear.
Wild.
No part of this is worth the incel manifesto nature of it. The music is awesome, but that's it.
He blew
They don't
balls
meet-
so hard. He
He
did
blew
something
balls
amazing.
so hard that he wrote 50 minutes of music.
God.
Have you ever been so sexually frustrated that you used up an entire notebook on sheet music?
Not on sheet music.
Lord.
So he goes, "Oh God, she's cheating on me. I'm so angry. I'm gonna start composing, like you do." And he starts writing. He immediately begins writing his symphony. This will become important in a moment. They do finally meet in 1829, and by all accounts, she still didn't speak English. I'm sorry, she still didn't speak French, and he still didn't speak English. So it was essentially just, "Je enjoyed your performance." At this point, she's playing Juliet. She has a habit of dying, I guess. Which, knowing Berlioz, probably got him off. It takes him about 1.5 years to write the symphony, which is honestly good time. If you don't know, writing music, especially if you're orchestrating for a large group, is slow work. My goal is usually 10 to 20 seconds of music per day. So 50 minutes, that's 300 days. It's a long process. And he wrote it probably very high. He probably got high regularly, and that will become apparent shortly. But he required
if you're gonna write anything, you gotta do that.
Yeah,
That's
see, that
how
maybe
I
that's my
write the
problem.
other show we have.
Maybe that's my problem. I don't write high.
The writing juice is stored in the weed and or opium. Is what's going on here.
The writing juice is stored in my vape.
Yeah. Berlioz premieres his symphony, and he requires... Now, again, Berlioz is not a big deal. This is not like the writer on the Van Halen concert set. This is just a dude who's writing music and got it performed once. And he says, every performance must have my program notes. He probably said it in French. The accent's the best I can do. And so your program would have the name of the symphony and this sort of paragraph after the title of each movement to say, this is what's happening here, man. Now, the symphony itself, I do think, incel notwithstanding, is a work of musical genius. And if you've never listened to it, you really 100% should. Berlioz was a phenomenal composer and a phenomenal orchestrator. His Damnation of Faust is also brilliant, although I think he also failed to see some of the issues he himself had. The symphony normally has 4 movements. Berlioz's symphony has 5. This was not unheard of. There had been a couple of 5-movement symphonies. There probably were 2 or 3 movements at times. But even so, it's notable because it wasn't normal. The first movement is called Dreams and Passions, and it's basically where Berlioz sets up all of the information that happens throughout the rest of the symphony. The first movement of a symphony is traditionally a form called sonata form, which essentially is where you lay out some information, you take it apart and play with it and put it back together in other ways, and then you you put it back together the way it was. So you take themes, you usually have 2 or 3 themes, you explicate them, and then you have a section in the middle where you turn them into anything you can, and it still needs to be recognizable that, hey, that's a bit of that theme. But it doesn't need to follow all of the rules that you followed before. You change keys, you change tonal centers, you hop back and forth between them, and then it recapitulates into the previous section with very few variations. Well, this movement is essentially that. It essentially works that way. It's a pretty bog standard sonata form. It's not negative, it's just there. But it has some very important elements to the rest of the symphony. It begins with about a 5-minute theme. Now, that's long. That's a theme that is almost as long as Won't Get Fooled Again by The Who. It's just one theme. And this is the theme of a tortured artist who struggles to be heard and understood, because Berlioz was nothing if not subtle. Suddenly, something he calls an idée fixe, a fixed idea, arrives. And the idée fixe is the beautiful, wonderful woman who he sees across a room. He's in love. Now, idée fixe is almost only ever used to refer to this symphony. If you've ever heard of a leitmotif, Leitmotif, that's what this is. A leitmotif, which is usually applied to Wagner and after, but I'm pretty sure Berlioz didn't speak German.
It's interesting that on some level he knew that he was in love with the idea of her and couldn't possibly be in love with her.
Stunning lack of self-awareness.
Yeah.
I mean, it wouldn't be the first time I've seen someone like that. I've gotten some great advice from people who should have taken that exact same advice. So.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we all have. So there's these 2 ideas. There's the artist theme, which is very prominent in the first movement and will get less and less prominent. And there's the beloved theme. He just refers to her as the beloved because it's definitely not Harriet Smithson. Why would you even ask? And throughout the rest of the movement, these 2 themes... Yeah, exactly. Precisely. Mariette Hexon. Kip Hackman. The 2 themes dance around each other. They chase each other in largely the same way that Hector Berlioz has been chasing his beloved Harriet, who still doesn't speak French.
This poor woman.
There's just a random French dude who's very, very passionate about her, and she can't get away from him. It's a fairly standard opening movement to a symphony.
He was Pepe Le Pew.
He was absolutely Pepe Le Pew.
Yeah. And I was going to say,
but not as fuzzy, probably.
Yeah, probably not as fuzzy. I was gonna say it's so it's baffling to think about. Like, it, what must she have thought this person wanted from her? I guess
I would
don't
love to
know.
find out. I would love to find out because I do speak English, and I would be able to speak to her and go, "Girl,
how was that for you?"
what the fuck?" The first movement ends with the artist. It ends with what we call a plagal cadence in the strings. A plagal cadence is more colloquially known as the amen cadence. It ends with this struggling, tortured artist who's in love going to a church to pray away the horny.
Got it. As we all.
And
do
I am
every
not
day.
making this up. I am not making this up. It ends with him going, "God, make my dick soft."
Jesus, please take my cameras away. Oh, sorry. Let me try that again. Jesus, please stick away my cameras.
Because it's very clear to him, not Berlioz, the character. It's very clear to him that she's not into it, and he needs to move on. He needs to find peace. And
Just
the next two
rub
movements are
one
about him
out,
trying to find
dude.
peace. Right? Yeah. Yeah. I thought the French
Jesus.
basically invented that.
Just take care of things.
Right?
Calm down.
Yeah, like I'm pretty sure. Like, also, I think prostitution was legal at this point, also. So, like, find
And it was
yourself
France
a nice.
again.
It was France. Yeah, find yourself a nice lady.
They sing up against the wall.
They what?
Yes, according to the
Oh, yeah.
documentaries I've seen.
Yeah. Yeah. They sing up against the wall, and Anne Hathaway is
yeah.
one of them.
Got it. I'm there.
Yes.
I'm there now. Yeah, the documentary.
And, like, let's be honest, you could do worse.
But yeah, so he's praying. He said, "Jesus, please take my bonheur away."
And it does not work.
Oh no.
The second movement is set at a party. Une balle. It's a waltz. The second or third movement of a symphony was usually a triple meter piece, just something that's a little bit lighter and livelier. And so it's a waltz. It is the first ever symphony movement to use harp. No one had ever used a harp in a symphony because harps were reserved for exactly the kind of chamber party that he's trying to depict. So there's a party, there's a harp, it's a
interesting.
waltz, everybody's dancing.
It was
Yeah.
thematic.
It was entirely thematic.
Interesting.
It would be like having a symphony now that used the actual sound of roaring fire to communicate warmth. Don't do that on stage at your local concert hall.
Pyrotechnics. Hell yeah.
Yeah, that's not until we get to Tchaikovsky.
Oh yeah.
So this dude goes to a party. He's trying to get her out of his head. Just like Romeo did when he went to that party. It doesn't work. There's not a whole lot to say except that it's a really well-written waltz, and this theme, this idea that he creates, suddenly becomes interwoven with the beloved idea, the beloved theme. Because he can't get her out of his head, she begins to inform his every waking thought.
Healthy, totally healthy.
As I was going to say, as is good in any healthy relationship.
Love it.
Yeah, imagine me with two partners. I can't get anything done.
I make sure of that.
I try not to imagine. So the third movement, he does much the same, except he doesn't go to a party. He goes out to the country. He's going to clear his head by going and hanging out in the open fields. This is one of the best depictions of a pastoral scene in instrumental music to date. It uses a traditional shepherd's tune, the style of a traditional shepherd's tune. He didn't take the tune, he wrote the way the tune was written, called a Rance des Vaches, which I believe means dance of the cows. But it was a real French style of music that would be played from hill to hill. That were basically just like shepherds on neighboring hills communing with one another while they're not able to actually hang out together. They would have, like an alpine horn or something.
Quick terminology question: what is a pastoral scene?
A scene of the country, a scene of usually of shepherding.
Yeah,
Okay.
pastoral is just indicative of countryside, sort of agricultural lifestyle.
Got it.
Usually used positively. It's not Hicksville, it's rustic.
Okay.
Yeah, and like because one of my big interests is visual art from that same era, and visual art in that same time very much romanticized pastoral scenes.
Got it.
You can see that in a lot of landscapes and stuff too.
A quaint village in the middle of a field or something.
Yes.
Yes.
Even
Yes,
without the village.
exactly
Maybe
that.
a village in the distance.
Oh, that's very.
And
frequent.
just maybe a single person with 2 ox in a field, and you see a bunch of trees.
Cool.
There was kind of this mood.
A Welsh
that
threesome, as they
people-
call it.
Sorry to any of our Welsh listeners.
But there was this feeling at the time of if we could just return to that simplicity. So it's interesting here that at the same time it was also going on in music.
There's a lot of nostalgia in Romanticism, both earned and unearned. And every time neo-Romanticism springs up, there is some more nostalgia. And it pops up, I don't know, about every 40 years. Someone's like, "You remember the good old days?" Except less country. Some of the Beatles music was very romantic in its sensibility. When I'm 64, for example, is very, very romantic. Capital R. It's also lowercase r romantic, but that's not important right now.
No, I feel like the entire cottagecore idea
Yes.
is very much a modern version of that.
Berlioz has this tune, the Rans de Vache, played on the English horn, which is not from England, and he has an oboe player backstage, or off stage rather. And so you actually literally get a distance feeling as they play back and forth this shepherd's
cool.
tune. I don't know whether it was the first one to do that in what we would consider the common practice period, which would be 1600 to now, but it was certainly one of the earliest big deals. I remember the first symphony I saw the premiere of had a marching band among the audience, and that wouldn't have happened ever if it hadn't been for Berlioz's Rans de Vache. The concept of this is he's done a very good job getting her out of his head. The country is working, man, because, as Brianne says, the Romantics were right. All you needed to do was get down to the seaside for some vapors. For the vapors. Whatever. Touch some grass. Until all of a sudden, there she is in his mind.
Oh no!
Yeah, you know how suddenly you're good, you haven't thought of it again until, damn it, you just thought of it.
You have that thought,
And
wow,
it's not
I haven't
just-
thought about XYZ in forever. Fuck. Did it.
Fuck. I just lost the game.
Boner's back. Sorry, farmers. Gotta go.
Well, no, the boner is not back. The boner is not back.
Oh.
Because the thought he has is not, I love her. The thought he has is, what if she was to cheat on me?
What?
Bear in mind, they are not together. They have never met. They are not together, these two characters. And his immediate thought is, what if she were to cheat on me? That would kill me.
He jumped
so
the shark,
this
the pond, and the whole ocean.
Very much. Very much. Yeah. Arthur Fonzarelli could not have made this jump. So it's not just the beloved idea. It's the beloved idea, the beloved theme with turmoil, with fear and anger, and the movement ends. It's this really beautiful pastoral scene, and it ends with a thunderstorm coming in. Timpani roll. You can hear the clouds, the thunder rolling, and it fades out almost. And it's a very, very soft ending, and it's like there's some foreboding, but generally it's very peaceful. Until
The boner's back.
no, now we get to drugs.
Hell yeah.
Oh.
Even better.
In the program notes, Berlioz says, okay, so he despairs. He's never going to meet her. He's never going to win her love. So he takes a lethal dose of opium. But he's not good at taking a lethal dose of opium. He takes a bunch of opium, but it's not enough to kill him. Instead, he trips balls.
Cool, sweet.
You know how when you trip balls, it's very, very specific and not at all just a bunch of unconnected images that make sense in your brain? Well, yeah. I've never tripped, but I imagine it's not like that.
Yeah, no, mine is that I get freaked out watching Great British Bake Off because I can feel their emotions while they wait for Paul Hollywood to tell them whether or not their cake was good. And I'm just like, this is the longest it's ever taken to taste a piece of cake. Please, you're killing them.
So So I do not partake in any of the drugs except for Lexapro, but I cannot imagine watching British Bake Off high. Like I of any variety. I feel like that would just be so stressful. As much as I love that show, I would probably jump out the window.
How I knew it. I was going to say, that's how I knew it kicked in. I had to turn it off.
And also, I'm cool and do drugs too.
I'm in no way cool enough to do drugs.
Not me. I'm cool. I do drugs a lot.
I am not cool, and I find a few of them fun. So he tripped balls, didn't watch Bake Off.
Being broke is my anti-drug. He trips balls. Instead of just seeing a bunch of fancy colors, he imagines that in a fit of rage, he has murdered his beloved.
Totally
Again, we're
normal.
making some big leaps here.
Totally normal and cool and not concerning.
And again, this is not Hector Berlioz. This is a character he has created that is named Hector Berlioz or something.
Definitely not him. And in the podcast that I write, I definitely, before Violet was my girlfriend, did not decide she needed to play my girlfriend because I had any gay feelings.
Yeah, totally.
If there's one thing I know about writers...
Art never imitates life.
Art never imitates life, that's for sure.
Yeah. And writers never write about their own life experiences, whether they mean to or not.
Never, ever.
That never happens.
Ever.
That's not writing, it's just being a documentarian. Or a documentarian, if you speak
So, he went full 4chan.
Full 4chan. That he has murdered the beloved. If I can't have her, nobody can have her. And now he's being led to the guillotine for her murder.
And may I remind everyone, this is a woman he has never had a conversation with.
He has never met. He's never had a conversation with.
He literally can't have a conversation with her, which is the most
Again, we're speaking of the character. I have to give a side note here, because I'd forgotten about this and I put it in my notes. Before he finished the symphony, Berlioz got married.
Oh.
To a woman who was not Harriet.
Married?
I'm sorry, no, he got engaged. He got engaged. He didn't get married. I'm sorry. This is important. To a woman named Camille Meek. They were engaged, but she broke off the engagement because it turns out she was hooking up with somebody else.
Oh.
So, and this is real. So Berlioz, the person, not the character, bought pistols, poison, and a disguise to go murder-suicide the two of them and her mom.
Totally.
But the drive was so
cool.
But he didn't do it because the drive was so long that he went, fuck it.
Oh.
My God. I bet you didn't think this was a true crime podcast.
Geographically
No, it wasn't a crime.
crime.
I was just thinking. Yeah. Yeah,
well,
geographically inconvenient crime. Coming
not a
soon
legal crime.
from my band.
A crime of,
so
of the
maybe,
mind and the heart, perhaps.
Maybe the fourth movement might have warranted a little bit of FBI surveillance. Because, like, this is not... You want to talk about art imitating life? This is, like, something he had a plan for. Why do you need to be disguised to go commit a murder-suicide? I don't know. But that's not important right now.
He did an O.J. Simpson. He said, I didn't do it, but if I had done it, this is how
But if I did.
Yeah.
Right. You will notice that her mom is still alive. Please, I would like the record to reflect that. So the action of the symphony actually picks up after the purported murder. Again, this is a character dreaming on acid that he has murdered her. And he's being led to the guillotine. There are a lot of really evocative effects. You can hear the literal march to the scaffold. You can hear the crowd cheer as he's being led up the guillotine, because this is France in the 1800s, and that was like the national pastime. At the very last minute, he hears the first 2 or 3 notes of the beloved theme as he goes, my love. And then suddenly you hear the guillotine slice his head off.
Whoa.
And his head bounced down the stairs. It's such a cool movement.
That's a cool
because
idea.
it is so cool, because the tone painting is there. It does. It audibly, the last thing that happens is boom, 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 as the head bounces down the steps.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
That's neat.
It's so cool. It's so cool. Again, putting aside the fact that it was born out of the most successful incel ever born, because Elon Musk's story is not finished. And we all hope. We all have hope that the man will be ruined. Now, as I said earlier, most symphonies are 4 movements long, which means that this is the end. But it's not. Now, it wasn't a surprise. It wasn't like they went, wait a minute, he didn't say there was going to be a 5th movement. But
it wasn't like the after credit scene in a Marvel movie.
Right.
No, it's not like the after credit scene. It's It's more like when you get to what you think is the end of the movie and you realize there's still half an hour of movie left.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
You go, oh, I thought they got the bad guy. I guess they didn't. Because now he awakens in his grave.
What?
Okay.
He awakens in his grave. Mm-hmm. This was not the first 5-movement symphony, but the life is over. Again, guys suffering ego death here. The life is over. The symphony ought to be over. No, he awakens in his grave. He's being revived by a bunch of witches.
Cool.
Now, France was very Catholic at the time. I don't actually know about the Catholicism of France of the day, but definitely of right now. But definitely in the 1830s, France is real freaking Catholic. They even built the Cathedral of Notre Dame to show how Catholic they were.
That's pretty Catholic.
Pretty Catholic. About
Yeah,
as Catholic
just to make the Hunchback movie happen.
Disney's roots go back so far.
Thank you.
Yeah, so far. Yeah. Walt had fingers in every pie, figuratively speaking.
Well, it birthed one of my first bisexual awakenings of Esmeralda. So.
Yeah, same.
Really?
Well, not bisexual.
Yeah.
Yeah. See,
But little baby me was like, I just think she's neat.
I still hate that movie. It's better than the novel, but that's
Not a good movie. But my little gay ass was like, I think.
Oh
she's
no,
neat.
get it. I get it. And it's never really clear why the witches are reviving him. It may be because they're witches and they're evil, and it's for the lulls.
Hey,
It could be to make.
Ethel, I heard this is
to
the
make fun of
greatest
him?
incel to ever live. Let's revive his ass.
Yeah, basically, yeah. Let's revive his ass. Maybe they're guiding him to hell. I don't know.
Let's revive his ass and stomp on his
But-
ball.
That must be it. That is now headcanon
Ugh.
for this symphony is that they're going to step on his
I
balls.
love it. I love these witches.
And that's the whole movement is they step on his balls for 10 minutes and that's all. No, the witches revive him and you hear the round dance of the witches. It's a very profane, and when I talk about transgressiveness in this music, you have to understand it's transgressive for 1830. But
I like to imagine. I'm hearing in my head that the witches are singing Peaches, and they're just going sucking
Yes,
on my
yes.
titties like
Calling,
you
calling.
wanted me, calling
Yes,
me all the time.
Absolutely.
a clarinet solo breaks in. One of the most famous classical clarinet solos of all time. And it's the Beloved theme. And it's no longer this beautiful, moving, lyrical idea. It's in the same style as this witch's dance. She's one of the witches. She's the head witch. This cheating whore that he killed is actually a
Oh my
witch.
God.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Has nothing to do with this movement. No.
Of course.
Then the big deal is. So one, yes, he's made this woman, this woman character, and I'm being very specific about this because there's more to the story after the symphony ends. He's made this woman character into a witch. The head witch. The sand witch. And she is leading the infernal orgy, not in the fun way. And then the Dies Irae plays. Now again, France is super Catholic. You have just played one of the funeral rites for the dead up against this profane dance.
Fuck
This would have been very transgressive at the time. It wasn't as transgressive as, say, The Rite of Spring, where there were reportedly riots in the theater on the premiere night.
yeah. Or WAP.
But it would absolutely have offended the French sensibilities at the time. Not enough to get Hector Berlioz guillotined, although maybe it might have been a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then it ends with a fugue. That same thing that fucked Berlioz over in the first place, he gives a great big up yours to the committee that he views as having rejected him by going, look at what I did. I wrote one that was better than the one I did before. And I'm sure the committee was like, yes,
Nice.
that's very good.
Why do you have so many
Good job.
guns, Hector?
Yeah, why are you carrying around guns and poison and you have a fake mustache on?
Yeah, I did not find any information on what that disguise was, but I do like to imagine it was just Groucho Marx. The symphony ends with this witch's dance and the Dies Irae playing at the same time, essentially with this artist's life having gone to hell, figuratively and literally. It is almost universally hailed as a work of genius, which is what Berlioz wants. He wants to be well known. He wants to be a genius. This is his manifesto, for lack of a better term. And I think it is a work of musical genius, even if the guy who wrote it he was just the worst kind of person. But he writes this symphony for this woman, Harriet Smithson. Remember her? She still doesn't speak French. And he sends her.
That plot twist.
He has his people get in touch with her people. And he says, "Have her come to the symphony." And she doesn't.
Fuck yeah. I love this bitch.
Suck a fuck, Hector.
She's invited to the premiere in 1830, and she won't hear it for another 2 years. And he's written this symphony partly because he's pissed off at her for cheating on him. They've never met. Actually, that's true. That's not true. They have met now.
They've just never spoken to each other.
But as far as I know, they could not communicate. They've just never spoken meaningfully to each other. Right. He writes it partly to be angry with her, but also to say, I made this for you. Do you love me now? Because what says I love you, like, I dreamed of murdering you and then
having you resurrect me to stomp on my balls.
To stomp on my balls, exactly. She doesn't show up to the premiere. She doesn't hear it. He keeps, at the time, symphonies would get toured around and you hear it a couple of times a year as the composer would try to get booked. Same as any other band, except it was just one dude and he would hire a bunch of musicians. In 1832, she finally shows up to a performance. And Berlioz is there. And he's like, I'm getting laid tonight.
I am rock hard right now.
Just
I could punch my dick through a sheet of butcher
getting
paper.
fucked. I'm about to write another symphony right here. All by myself. Probably midway through the third movement, Smithson realizes it's about her.
Oh,
Midway through the third, probably the fourth movement,
just
Smithson realizes it's about her. Yeah,
Oh.
Brianne's getting the cringe.
oh no, I
Oh.
So
can't
after the show,
fucking
oh no,
imagine.
oh no.
Oh.
After the show, she comes to him. I don't know if there's a translator, if she's learned a couple of words of French, like "quoi la fuck." But she comes to him and says, "Is that about me?" And he goes, "Yeah." Will you marry
Do
me?
you like it?
He says, "Will you marry me?"
Oh my god.
Now, of course, courtship and marriage was a little bit different 200 years ago in the sense that you did get that a little bit quicker, but that's still a little fast.
It's a little fast. That's a little fast. And
What?
Violet moved in with us after less than a year.
Yeah.
Granted, lesbian, I have that right.
Yes.
He has no
yes.
such
Gonna
privilege.
say that's fast coming from two people in a lesbian relationship. She says no because
What?
it turns out she's not an idiot.
Yeah.
He pulls out a bottle of laudanum. Now, if you don't know what laudanum is, it's not good for the human body. It's a deadly, deadly poison. And he drinks it. He's like, "Well,
Bro.
how about now, bitch?"
Definitely not.
She goes, "Oh God, if it will." No. She goes, "Oh God, if it's going to keep someone's blood off my hands, fine, I'll marry you." And he goes into another pocket, pulls out the antidote, and drinks it.
See,
Really
that's
just
where Harriet and I are
well-adjusted
different.
stuff.
That's where Harriet and I are different. I
Oh,
would have been
yeah.
like, okay,
Oh, yeah, same.
weirdo. I didn't do this.
Don't fall on me, man.
No.
I would have
I'm
been
outta
like,
here.
ooh, that sucks, bro. I'm gonna go get some.
You should get that checked
I'm
out.
gonna-
I have to go.
Yeah.
I'm gonna guess that he had learned some English, because ironically enough, English was more of a common lingua franca, because he was able to at least communicate this much to her. So she hastily says yes. He produces the antidote from his pocket, and he goes, "Never mind, I'm good. Probably gonna have a little tummy ache later, but I'm good." So
Probably gonna have
I'm thinking June.
Probably going to have a sixth movement here in a little bit, but
I'll see you after I get out of the bathroom.
And before I get out of the bathroom as well. Before I go back into the bathroom. There is one bright spot in this story. In the story of Incel Gets the Girl. Their marriage sucks.
oh,
Like, it
shot.
sucks.
I never could have seen that coming.
Yeah,
Well, it sucks for Berlioz, too.
good.
Smithson was... Harriet Smithson's career was mostly over. Because she had gotten old. She was like 30.
Gross.
Shut the fuck up.
Well, like, even more so in that day and age than today, and that's saying something. Leonardo DiCaprio. She wasn't being sought for parts. Excuse me.
I'm thinking of that that fake Snapchat for Pink, like, oh no, don't turn 25, you're so pretty.
Yeah, no, I'm 31. I never get sought for my parts anymore.
I'm 33. I'm practically dead.
Oh no, you're a guy.
So
you're
she'd reached the ripe old age of. Oh, that's true. That's true. Turns out she had realized that she was pretty much at the end of her career, and Berlioz's star was on the rise. So she basically just got married to him for his cash, which, go girl.
Yeah.
And Berlioz realizes this, and they're only married like 6 years.
That's still
That's a long time for someone who stalked you.
Okay, only 6 years?
But imagine, but Catholic.
True.
That's like
okay.
1/100th of what they're supposed to be married.
In Catholic time, that's like...
Yeah, in Catholic time, that's like a month. That's a full-on Britney Spears. And, also, she still didn't speak French.
How are they communicating?
That was part of the problem with their relationship.
Yeah, not well.
God.
Berlioz did get some, success at first. Like, he wrote some really amazing stuff. The Damnation of Faust, it was a flop when it came out, but I think it is a fantastic piece of music. He got married 3 or 4 times after that, and died penniless.
All right. Couldn't happen to a better dude.
Yeah, I mean, so...
Couldn't happen to a better dude.
Now, can I just say, if you are the second person this motherfucker is marrying, how are you not like...
Right?
Where's my symphony, dude? Where's my symphony, motherfucker?
Oh, also, how do you not hear his symphony and go, oh, the murder.
Oh, he's crazy.
The murder.
Yeah. Oh, this is a normal symphony that a human person would write that isn't crazy.
So
Got it.
The poison for your ex's mom, the poison chosen specifically to kill your ex's mom. Your ex's mom's poison. That poison?
That is wild.
And I did not mention that he did only ever refer to his ex's mom as the hippopotamus.
What?
Which isn't really relevant, but I thought it was at least funny.
That's wild. I kind of love that.
Yeah, that's it's nice to know that people have been hating their mother-in-laws for...
Oh, yeah. No, it was full-on boomer humor.
Forever. Yeah. Wow.
Gosh.
No, Berlioz... So, in the great debate, for lack of a better term, the great struggle between great art, terrible person, Berlioz is not the front and center person, but he's standing very close behind Wagner, like creepy close, like can touch him with his dick.
Wait, what did Wagner do?
And Wagner was a raging anti-Semite.
Yeah.
Like Hitler didn't only love Wagner because he had good taste in music.
Oh no.
Hitler also loved Wagner because he had very bad taste in people.
I should brush up on my history.
So like people who like Kevin Sorbo now.
Yeah, people like the dude who was just sentenced to 17 years in prison.
Yes.
Which, I'm going to be honest, that's the weirdest boner I've ever had in a discount tire. But of the many.
Not mine.
But Berlioz really was a musical... I struggled to come up with something besides genius. He was a phenomenal composer and a phenomenal orchestrator. It's just a shame that he had to counterpose that with...
being an equally terrible human being.
An equally terrible person, yes. And probably exacerbated by the fact that he lived in a day, age, and place where that sort of behavior was normalized.
Yeah, like...
Which does not excuse, but it certainly is why he didn't get shot.
Yeah, and there are even, like... You had me thinking about the trope of, like, harassing and following the girl you've never spoken to. And, like, that carries into pretty much every teen 80s movie that stars a boy. Like...
Oh, absolutely.
I think the one that bothers me the most is, like, Encino Man is what I'm thinking of. Like, there's that theme of that, too.
I often find my thoughts drifting to Encino Man.
Listen, Brendan Fraser. I'm thinking of movies
no, I'm not arguing.
Rewatch. But, yeah, no, like, that behavior was accepted for another 100 years after as normal and considered romantic.
Things like Disney movies have conditioned us as a society to think that never giving up until the person you love loves you back is romantic.
Well, and I'll tell you that as a person who was once a teenage boy, that fucked up my ability to understand why things weren't working out for me. I figured it out. Hey, honey, you still like me, right? Yeah, she likes me, so it's fine.
Great job.
She's good. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, she's good.
Well,
Berlioz did write a sequel.
Oh
God.
my god.
He wrote a sequel. It is not the subject of this particular info dump because I've never actually heard it. Essentially, it's much less telling a story and more impressionistic. This is how I felt when Harriet Smithson rejected me. She didn't speak English.
It's still about Harriet Smithson? Are you fucking serious?
This is how I felt when that bitch cheated on me after we were engaged. This is how I felt when I saw Shakespeare for the first time with Harriet.
The next thing you're going to say is
look into my sick, twisted mind.
he came out with a fashion
Very
line.
much
This
so.
is what
It's
I was
called,
wearing when I
Lelio.
saw Harriet for the first time. What the fuck, dude?
And this one does have narration. But again, I haven't heard it, so I
God.
can't speak to it. I do highly recommend anyone who likes music and can, at least for a moment, stop thinking about how creepy this fucking dude was. Not forget, just stop thinking about. Find a recording. There's the recording by, I want to say it's the Vienna Philharmonic, and Leonard Bernstein is absolutely marvelous because Leonard Bernstein was possibly the greatest conductor who ever lived. It's about a 50-minute symphony, so take an hour of your time.
If you've got a particularly
Listen to
long
it.
train ride,
Look up the program notes. Figure it out. Mm-hmm.
Cool. Well, thank you, Sean. I think if you find a
absolutely.
link to that, we can
Hell
put
yeah.
that in the notes that we
definitely not
give
on
to
YouTube.
Thank you
to
so
the
much, Sean.
Patreon subscribers. Yeah, so Sean will have notes for people on the Mixnomer Patreon about that. And thank you. Maybe we'll have to do a part 2 about the Symphonie Fantastique part 2, the
I'll have to listen to it first.
Revengeing, or whatever he named it.
Thanks for
All
taking
right.
a dump with us.
Thanks,
Always
Sean.
happy.
Thanks for coming to take a dump with us.
I'll take a dump on your show any day.
Hey, it's me. I'm back with the housekeeping. The usual, you can check out what Violet and I are doing on various places in the internet if you check out the show details. Also, if you want to support the show by joining our Patreon, we have levels starting as low as $1 a month where you get to be part of our Discord server where we hang out and just have a good time. As I am recording this, it'll be hey, happy holidays for you and Merry Christmas if you celebrate it. The day I'm recording this, we're going to be having a little holiday party and playing Jackbox games with everyone in the Discord server later today. So if that sounds fun for you, go check out our Patreon by clicking on the link in the show details. Also, at some higher levels on our Patreon tiers, you can get a shout out at certain levels, like our friends Randy Lovings, Rachel Rachelson, Sewing Seraph, B. Trossler, Kelly Brennan, Smriti Singh, Helen Clifford, M. Mosen, and Lucy. Also, if you want to support the show, but you can't do so monetarily, which I completely understand, the best way you can do about that is share the show with a friend. Share about us on social media, in that Facebook group you're in that Discord server you're in, on, a subreddit you're in, somewhere, to tell other people about the show. Mixnomer is completely free of sponsored ads and advertisements. We'll only promote shows or other people who we think are doing something cool. And we also don't pay to have ads on other shows, so we grow completely by word of mouth. So if you like the show and you like what we're doing and you want to support a bunch of weirdos making podcasts and other stuff so we can make more cool stuff, the best way you can do that is just telling people about the show. If you would like some one-on-one support, peer support or coaching, and you are AuDHD, I also have my website and my contact info in the show details if you want to check out that. But yeah, I think that's about it for us, and we'll see you next year.